I'm Katie.
And I'm Liz. And we're best friends.
We both feel called to ministry and serve in the local church.
We're on a mission to discuss how the Bible applies to our lives.
Yes, and to confront the issues we face in today's world.
God's design for our lives is beautiful, and it's a choice we want to follow,
even if it does make us different. This is Coloring Outside the Lines. Welcome back to Coloring Outside the Lines with Katie
and Liz.
We're so excited for episode 2.
Yes, thanks for joining us again, episode 2. We hope you listened to episode 1. There was a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah, we kind of introduced ourselves and the why behind the podcast. So we will not bore you with that again. It wasn't boring. It was great. Mm-mm. It was great. Yeah. It was great. It was fantastic. So you can go back and listen to that to find out more about us. Basically, we're both in ministry in different aspects. I'm a pastor's wife, and I help around the church and lots of stuff. And Liz is
I'm over children's ministry and, what she said.
She's a pastor.
I'm over children's ministry and outreach ministries. Yeah. And that's pretty much all I do at the church.
Which is a lot. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of stuff. I don't know about you, but we've had a crazy couple of weeks.
Wow. It has been absolutely insane. I feel like I had to put on extra concealer today to cover up the bags up underneath my eyes.
Circles.
From the lack of sleep that we've had.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying lack of sleep for us might be a hysterical view for you.
Right. It might be really funny. Sometimes we're really funny when we're tired.
We say things that maybe we probably shouldn't say while we're recording.
Yeah, we'll have to edit that out. But hopefully we'll be appropriate today. That'll be good. I don't know. I did not get a break yesterday at all. Mm-hmm. I was at church a lot yesterday. And then it's I'm also a school librarian and I have 3 kids. So we haven't had spring break yet. We're recording this in March and I am tired.
I'm ready for Christmas already.
Christmas? No. Christmas is too much. I'm ready for summer.
Well, because you get a break in summer.
Yes, I do.
Oh,
Glory
so
to God.
In case you all don't know, teachers get a summer break, and they totally deserve the summer break. Totally deserve the summer break. It is earned. It is much needed, and I'm so glad that teachers get summer break. But let me tell you who doesn't get summer break.
Who?
The children's pastor don't get summer break. The kids are always like, Liz, when are you going to take vacation? Aren't you on summer break too? And I'm like, nah.
No, she's got to work.
Every day.
She's got to work. Listen, I have to work too. I have to go to all those camps. I have to chaperone everything. They want me to work vacation Bible school. All the things.
Listen,
I'm ready for spring break. I need a break.
Do you know what I heard in that?
What?
All I heard was, complain. She clearly does not want extra jewels in her crown in heaven.
Children of Israel, I'm murmuring in the wilderness.
Bless it. No, but seriously, vacation.
Let's take one.
Listen, my stimulus check just dropped.
Whoa.
So, thanks, government. It's on you this time.
We appreciate that. We know we're going to be paying for it for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
Or maybe our kids will. Well, yeah, your kids will someday when you have them.
Yeah. I'm believing that
you're going to have
the
kids?
Lord. Yeah, maybe one day. The Lord is day by day showing me what he has for me in the future.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And where he's going to call me to in the future. And I believe that one day I might be suffering for Jesus in Hawaii. But until then,
yes, God,
I'm thinking a vacation in Honolulu is much needed.
Yes, I feel the call to Hawaii for sure. I don't know that my husband feels that call, but I feel it. I feel the call to beach ministry. So listen, if you're listening from Hawaii, and you need some guest speakers for your women's conference or your men's conference. We don't care. We
don't discriminate.
Children's youth. We'll talk to anybody. Just call us. Mm-hmm. Give us a call. We're ready for vacation.
That's right.
I need a break.
Yes.
I need a break.
And I'm just saying, in the great words of the prophetess Moana. Moana. The ocean is calling us.
Oh, yes. I hear it.
The wind on the seas are calling us.
They call me. Should we sing it?
No. Let's spare you
I just
all.
never knew what she was saying forever. It was like blah 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 blah. What is she saying?
You have to watch the sing-along version.
You have to see the subtitles for sure.
And watch the little dot
and then my niece
bump
had a
over
doll.
every word.
My niece had a doll that sang it. It was awful.
You
It
know,
was torture.
really the only song that I walk around singing is the You're Welcome song who's that, like Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My son likes to sing that a lot.
I only sing the one line. I only know what can I say except you're welcome.
We just sing a lot of Let It Go.
Oh yeah. Prophetess Elsa.
Let It
She's
Go.
a good one.
She's a good one. Let it go. I think you should let it go.
That's true.
I think somebody should let us go to the beach.
To the beach, but not let us go like we still need to get paid.
Yeah, that's true. But your stimulus check dropped, so I think you could take us both on vacation.
I mean, did your stimulus check not drop?
It did drop.
Oh.
It did drop. But I'm sure my husband has plans for it.
That's true. I'm just thinking, y'all got 5 people in your houses. I can't do math that well, so I really don't know what 1,400 divided by 5 is, but I know it is not much as 1,400 divided
by
5. Oh, you got it 5 times.
Yeah.
Hold up. I thought everybody. No, she can go to Hawaii. Let's not even. She got her own $1,400. I did not realize.
Yeah.
I did not realize that you guys
It's $1,400 per person in your house.
So Yachty.
Well, he's the dog.
I need to claim him.
You need to figure out how to claim animals.
Really, you know what this is saying? I need to get married.
Yes.
This is what the government has confirmed.
If you're watching and you are listening on your whatever you listen to, podcast, your device, and you are looking for a wife, we have one here. Not me. I'm already taken.
And you love Jesus.
You love Jesus. And maybe you're a nice single pastor out there looking for a beautiful
wow, that's a lot of
wife
detail, Katie.
who is talented.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Called, anointed.
That's too much. Just stop it.
And has a stimulus check.
Yes, I do have $1,400 to contribute to this relationship. That's about it.
That's about it.
I mean, I can cook and clean. No other financial help there. But anyway, enough about vacation. We're dreaming about it. We'll be there in our dreams. Please remember us in your prayers.
That's right. We're going to go back to the wilderness like the children of Israel and complain. No, we're not going to complain.
I mean, we might a little.
We might a little.
Not to you anymore, though. We'll stop that.
No, we're going to be good.
Until next episode.
So we're going to talk today about the wilderness. We really are. Right?
Yeah, we really are talking about the wilderness
Hagar and
Ishmael.
Yeah, I got to pull up my notes. I was not prepared. Okay, so we're going to talk about the wilderness and the desert season. And last time we talked about Esther and how, we feel like we were made for such a time as this, even though this time isn't so great.
Yeah.
But neither was Esther's time. And so we're going to talk about this desert time and this wilderness time that sometimes we all have to go through. We all have to face.
Okay. Well, see, Katie just had to pull up her notes, but unfortunately, my computer has died. So the good news is, that Bible verse growing up that says, "I have hidden your word in my heart."
Yes, God.
I did that. So we're going to be fine with no notes because the computer decided to go.
You can use the Bible.
Sharing is caring.
Real Bible, real person in life, real life Bible. Wow.
Yes, we're so thankful we have the Bible in person, but we really are. We are talking about Hagar and Ishmael and how Abraham played into that and being in the wilderness place. And even though times may not look good right now, God is still doing something. God is still
100%.
doing something. I always heard when we're down to nothing, God is up to something.
I like
so,
that. That's good.
He's always up to something, and he's always got great plans for us. So we believe that we saw that, which we do believe this because we believe the Bible. We saw how that transpired in Esther's life.
Yes.
How she went through what we know to be one of the hardest times in her life.
Yep. But then she saw God move, and she had favor with the king, and she realized, her cousin helped her realize, hey, maybe you were born for just this time. Yeah. And so if we can relate that to our lives all the time, lots of people have been trying to make the years pass and get rid of where we are in this spot. And it isn't good. And we talked about this last time, that it's not from God. The the COVID and all the things that have been
Yeah.
happening, but God, and he gave her favor where she was and helped her to save her people. So it was really great.
Yeah, and I think we can see in the story that we're going to talk about today, which is found in Genesis, the very first book of the Bible.
Yes, the beginning.
We see that Esther wasn't the only one in the Bible who found favor with God. As a matter of fact, there were tons and tons of stories of people finding favor with God. And our favorite saying is, favor ain't fair.
Favor ain't fair. Especially
like, when you pull up to Walmart and you can't find a parking spot, and then that one parking spot that's not handicapped, because if you're not handicapped, you don't need to be parking there.
No.
And it's not for, like the prescription or the pickup groceries, because those are for those people.
Right.
But you're going into the store and
then all of a sudden
you're praying that you don't lose your salvation when you go into Walmart, because it's super easy to do. But 100%. You find that parking spot that's super close to the door. And I just like to say, favor ain't fair.
No.
So all that to say, we see in our story today that Hagar and Ishmael find favor in the sight of God. And I tend to think, like, even when I was studying and even when I was reading through it, I kind of just I knew the story. I just kind of skimmed over it. I didn't really think about Hagar and Ishmael finding favor in the sight of God. Like, I knew that God took care of them.
Right.
But I always was like, Abraham's the guy. He's the guy. He's the guy that has favor with God.
Right.
Like,
you think of Hagar, she's the other woman.
She the side chick.
And she the side chick. Yeah, that's tough.
In like teen lingo.
Right. And she gets thrown out. So we don't think of her as like a main event or as a character that God really even takes care of, especially from, when we were kids and those Bible stories and stuff. There's not a lot of spotlight on Hagar, but you were telling me an interesting story the other day about when you visited with some ladies and you had this really, you were studying about Hagar, and then you had this kind of light bulb moment, and I really thought that was great.
So that's kind of how this topic of this podcast came about. Yeah. We've been praying about what we should talk about and asking the Lord to reveal that to us. But I was speaking to a group of ladies the other day that are going through some tough times.
Yeah.
They are going through some things in life where they're seeking the Lord, and they are asking the Lord to help them on their journey.
Yeah.
And
they're having going through a wilderness
moment. Yeah. They're coming out of one season in their life that they're saying goodbye to. Mm-hmm. And right now they're kind of in the wilderness, barren period, waiting for what's coming next to enter their next season. And so I was sitting in their Bible study. I was a guest. I'd only been once before. Mm-hmm. I was sitting in their Bible study, and I'd been very, very quiet. And they'd been studying and they'd been learning how to properly apply the Bible to their lives. Because it's easy just to hear about God's word. It's easy just to read over the words, but how to have practical application.
What a great Bible study.
Yes, it's phenomenal. I'm learning so much through that myself. So I attended their Bible study. I didn't say anything the whole Bible study. I let the girls talk. I let the ladies who were leading the Bible study talk. And at the end, they said, "Hey, Liz, you're a children's pastor." And I was like, "That's no big deal. Good. I'm not big on titles. I'm not worried about that. If you love God, you're saved, you're his child." That's how I look at it. And so they were like, "Hey, why don't you share your thoughts on this? Or why don't you share something with the group? Do you have anything?" And I was like,
"No." That's that moment when they know you're in ministry and they're like, do you have something? And you're like,
"Yeah.
Do I have something?"
Yeah. And so the first lesson I learned was, always be ready.
Be instant in season and out.
Out of season. Which we say that all the time, but until you're put on the spot, you're like, "Oh man." Yeah. I feel like I'm fixing to be judged for my whole Christian walk here.
Right.
But I will say
come up with something good.
or act like you know what you're talking about. Right. I don't know. But I say all that to say they were super non-judgmental. Mm-hmm. They were so sweet, so welcoming. They would have never done that.
Right.
But I say all that to say we were talking about it, and I had been studying earlier that morning after we have staff prayer every week. And right after staff prayer, I went back to my office and I was just doing my daily reading, my daily devotional time. And it just so happened this week was about Hagar and Ishmael. Mm. And I was telling them that you may feel like you're coming out of this season, that you've been kicked out of this season, or you walked away from the season, you've been sent away, and you weren't sent away with very much. Which sometimes some seasons that you walk away from, it's okay to leave everything behind. We need to leave everything behind. And in their case, that was probably the proper application.
The right thing to do, yeah.
But it still doesn't feel good when you don't know where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how
Mm-hmm.
you're going to meet your next checkpoint, how you're going to, pay your next bill, how you're going to find your next drink of water.
Yeah.
You don't know what's coming next, and it feels very dry. It feels very barren. It feels dead. And you get nervous. You know that you're going through the motions.
Yeah.
But you just don't know. So anyway, so I was telling him all this, and I said, what you have to realize is that even in the wilderness, the things that you left behind didn't follow you into that wilderness. You left it behind for a reason. But
Wow.
the one thing that followed you into the wilderness was God. And he was there from your season before. He has always been there. He's never going to leave you. He wants to lift you up. He wants to make you and help mold you into the person he always desired and planned for you to be.
Wow, that's great.
So I was just telling him how that relates to the story of Hagar and Ishmael so much, because when they thought that they were done, when they thought that there was no more moving forward, the people who had been surrounding them in their previous season were nowhere to be found anymore, because they weren't doing the things that they had previously done. But now that they're stepping into a new season, they're going to have to walk through this wilderness, this
barren
place,
wasteland,
barren wasteland. And sometimes that hurts, but it's also to get rid of all the things that were there before.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
And so I wanted them to know,
like a toxic thing, or
absolutely,
leaving something that's not good for you.
And I think probably, I know I've been there in my life. I think that
we've all
been there in our lives, and I think that it's not a one-time thing.
Right.
I think that we all can say, "Man, this feels like a wilderness season. This feels like a very barren season." For sure. But the one thing that always remains, and this is what I told him, is no matter what you're going through, there is always someone there. God, yeah. And he is going to
never leaves us.
And he wants to make us into something great. He wants to mold us. It says that he is the potter and we are the clay.
Yeah, that's great.
And he loves us so, so much. So that's what I was telling him. I wanted them to know how much they were loved, and that just because of their previous season, because they walked away from it, does not mean that God is walking away from them.
Yeah,
he's drawing closer to them. When we draw close to him, he can draw close to us. And that was my point. The further you walk in the wilderness, away from old things that we shouldn't be a part of, the closer you're getting to him.
That's good. That's good.
If you're walking in his direction.
That's good. Well, let's talk about this story then. Let's dive into it for just a minute. So you find the story kind of begins in Genesis, or it does begin in Genesis. We pick her story up in chapter 21. But this whole Ishmael, Sarah, Hagar, Abraham thing started, before that. Yeah. So basically, to give you some backstory in case you're not familiar with Abraham's story, or just maybe to refresh you. So Abraham becomes God's chosen man. Like God finds favor with him, or he finds favor with God. God finds him and moves him from his home to a new place, calls him out, and he goes with his wife and all those things. And they go through lots of things along the way, but in essence, they get to this new land and they settle it. And God promises him, changes his name from Abram to Abraham, meaning the father of many, changes Sarah's name from Sarai to Sarah. And so God is changing them from who they were into who he sees them, to their potential. Yeah. So this is who you were born as, but this is who I see you as. And I think he does that with us. Yeah. So often, maybe not change our name specifically, but
there's an identity shift.
Yeah. And when we go from dark to light, when we become saved, we have a whole new identity in Christ. But that's another story for another day. So Abraham becomes God's man. And he says, I'm going to make you the father of many nations. And basically he's saying, I'm going to have this chosen people, the children of Israel. Of course, they don't know that's their name at the time. And you're going to be the father of them. Well, there's one problem. It's kind of a big problem. Abraham and Sarah don't have any kids. And they're old.
And there's that song, Father Abraham had many sons.
Well, he didn't. That's really not true. At first. And so he doesn't have any kids. And God promises him in his old age that he's going to have children, him and Sarah. And she hears this and she's like, you know what? I'm old. Like, these parts haven't worked yet. Ain't going to work. Kind of thing. And so this is where we pick up, well, God promises this. Well, Sarah, I started to think about her the other day and I thought, we always are so mean to Sarah. We're like, Sarah had to do things her own way because it wasn't happening. But personally, having dealt with some fertility issues myself, I don't believe I would go to the extremes that Sarah went to, but at the time, she didn't have IVF, she didn't have fertility treatment, she didn't have doctors, she didn't have any other course of action. And in their culture, this was a thing you could do. It was okay. It was acceptable. Yeah, if you couldn't have children, it was acceptable for your husband to have children with a servant or another wife to get it to have an heir, because he didn't have an heir or a spare. I was like that.
Heir or spare.
I was like that thing. I'm the heir and he's the spare. But anyways, that's not important. So I thought about her the other day when I was thinking about this podcast, and I thought, you know what? Sarah is so desperate to give her husband what he desires and really what she desires. And she probably feels less of a woman and so broken because she cannot bear a child, and not understanding science and why things didn't work. She probably blames herself if something I did wrong. I mean, there's all kinds of things.
This is what women were looked at, not to be degrading of women, but in this time, women were seen as job, you were to bear them an heir, you were to bear them a child, and she couldn't do that. She felt I can only imagine if you felt like you couldn't do the one thing that you knew you were supposed to do, or you felt like you're supposed to do, what am I here for?
I can tell you from personal experience, you feel, even though I knew I was more than somebody who bears children, you feel like you should be able to. It's just a natural thing that women should do, and especially when you want to. So you feel very broken and very unworthy, and there's whole lots of feelings that go around with that. So I kind of have empathy for Sarah now. I'm trying to be a little nicer to her now. Again, I would not do or recommend what she does, but so in her desperation to make this happen and to see God's plan fulfilled, she tries to make it happen herself. And I think we can all see those moments when we've tried to play God and we know this is what God's plan is. It's not happening.
So we try to make it happen on our own time.
In our time. Yeah.
I mean, Chick was old.
She was.
She was old. So I can understand, I'd be like, can that even happen?
I think we should calm down and not be so mad at Sarah.
Yeah, that's true.
If we think about it, in the future, in Hebrews, God says she had great faith.
Yeah.
So she does eventually redeem herself. So anyways,
all that to say,
we're
not mad at Sarah. We get
it. We can see her point of view, and maybe you've been there. Maybe you've been in a desperate situation, but the moral we can learn from Sarah is don't be God.
Don't do what Sarah did.
Right. Yeah. Don't do that for sure. But so she brings her servant to her husband and says, hey, listen, I can't have a baby. I can't make it happen for you. So just take her, get the job done.
Listen, I don't like even sharing my Lunchable, my lunch. I certainly am not fixing to share my man.
No, heck no.
And anybody out there that says they will, we'll pray for you.
Yeah, that's weird. No, I for sure wouldn't do that either. And so that probably hurt her to do.
Oh, for sure.
She's admitting all kinds of stuff.
She loved
trying to make this happen. And so, of course, her probably she was pretty. I mean, let's be real. This young servant girl gets pregnant, has the baby, and I'm sure that there's lots of issues and all these things. And lo and behold, Sarah, I think 12 years later, if I'm not wrong, actually finally gets pregnant.
Well, and what I think is interesting, it's obviously you're either going to have a girl or you're going to have a boy, right? And so obviously women are still revered in this time. We just talked about it, how it's not on the same level as how the boy was. They needed a son. And he had a boy, Ishmael. Hagar had a boy. And so I'm sure that hurt Sarah too. Not only did you have a child with him, but you had a son.
You had a son. Yeah. And then she has a son. So she was probably just kind of used to this kid, and he's going to be the heir, and I'm going to try to be nice to him. Yeah. And he has a mom. And then all of a sudden she has the kid. And God fulfills his promise because he always does.
Yeah.
And so now she has a baby. Well, her baby's about to be weaned. And this whole thing, this other kid, Ishmael, he's older. He's 10 or 12, I think. And Sarah's like, listen, there's going to be a rivalry. He's going to be like, I'm the heir. I was born first. And she's like, you're not the legitimate heir. My son Isaac is the legitimate heir. He's the chosen kid. And so she is not having it. And I'm sure that Hagar was feeling a little haughty about it too. And in that culture, that was the thing, that was what gave her power, was the wife who had the heir. And so
who had the birthright.
All these things, if you understand, the birthright, the culture and whatnot. So Sarah is not having it. So she finally goes to Abraham and says, I'm going to need you to send her away. Send her and Ishmael away. They're not getting anything. They need to go. And of course, Abraham doesn't want that to happen because that is his child.
Yeah.
And he's raised him for the last, 12 years. Mm-hmm. So here we come to this part of the story.
And so Sarah does say, send him away. Send him away. Now remember, the man is the head of the household in this culture. And I find this very interesting. The man is the head of the household in this country. The man has all the power. Like, women are sold off as wives to have children. Like, that's just how it works. Men are not sold off to be husbands. They they marry. It is arranged marriages, whatever. Yeah. All that to say, Sarah says she got to go. Yeah. She's done. She got to go today.
I'm tired of it.
I ain't looking at her no more. I ain't talking to her no more. I ain't breathing the same air she's breathing no more. Probably. That's my version. That's what I would actually. I'd probably use
her out.
I probably would say something a lot worse, but I would never share in the first place.
But get her kid out.
Yeah, get her kid out. I don't want none of them here. I don't even want to look at him.
I don't want to see him.
So all that to say, what I find interesting is because the man is the head, that he listens to his wife. He is submissive to his wife. He was obedient to her.
Well, you know what they say.
Happy
ain't mama happy. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Oh, well, I grew up hearing happy wife, happy life, so I don't know.
That's a little more positive.
I would know.
Say, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
And we say all that to say, we understand the role that men play. We respect it, and we're just being funny.
It's a different culture. But I'm sure that he wanted peace in his house, and knowing that Isaac really was the child of promise, because God promised that Abraham and Sarah would have a baby.
Yeah.
He specifically said, you will have a son with your wife who is old.
Yes. So all that to say, he sends Hagar and Ishmael away. He loads them up with water. But think about it. He can only give them enough water for what they can carry. I mean, they don't have a car. They don't have a plane. They don't have a bus. I mean, it's only what they can carry.
Right.
And Ishmael's not a very big kid. I mean, he's probably like,
I think 10 or 12.
Like preteen. And preteens, I don't know if you'll have a preteen in your home, but I work with preteens and they are glorious children. I love them so much, but sometimes they are not all that helpful.
Right. And they're going to be like, are we there yet?
I ain't carrying this no more. My eyes are tired. So word to the wise. If you ever have to carry water, make sure you drink the preteen's water first and save yours for later. Okay. That's my advice there. Anyway, so
that's probably true.
Abraham loaded them up with some things, but it was only enough so that what they could carry.
Yeah.
So they set out and they began to wander into the wilderness. And so they get to a place where they run out of everything. They run out of food. They run out of water. And when you're in the middle of the hot desert, like you need water above all else. You definitely need water above all else. So they run out and she places Ishmael, her son, her only son, underneath like this tree bush thing. And she wanders off and goes and sits by herself. And then the Lord appears to her. And he says, what are you doing? What are you doing? And she tells him, she's like, Lord, like, I can't sit here and watch my son cry. Like, I can't sit here and watch him die.
Yeah. I'm sure he was calling out to her like, Mom, help me. Do something for me. Help me, save me. And she can't.
She physically cannot do anything about it. But then the Lord responds with the sweetest thing. And I want to read this to you.
Yeah.
Word for word.
Word for word.
So Genesis 21, verse, it starts in verse 17. I'm going to read with Hagar, what's wrong? Hagar, what's wrong? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Go to him and comfort him, for I will make him a great nation from his descendants. Now, Hagar had just been like, God, I left him over there because I don't want to watch him die.
Right.
And the Lord says, go to him and comfort him. Now, to me, that just proves the nurturing aspect of the mother's nature as well.
Yeah. And of God. God has that. A lot of times we just think of him as God the Father. But he created male and female in his image. And so God is also a nurturer. He has that mothering, nurturing side as well.
It's in his nature to do those things. He's kind. He's gentle. He's not...
He's going to... Well, I know our pastor, or one of the pastors that spoke yesterday said, in church, he said, God provides our supernatural, but also our natural. So he provides for both of those things that we need.
And she could only provide. She needed both, but she was only able to provide natural.
Yeah.
And she needed to depend on God for the natural and the supernatural.
She needed both.
And so it goes on to talk about her eyes were opened later on. She gets up, she goes over, she comforts the boy. God says, now keep in mind, Ishmael was not the heir to Abraham's birthright, for the birthright. He wasn't the heir.
The chosen child of God.
But God still says, get up, go over to him, and I will make him a great nation out of his descendants. Mm-hmm. And so they found favor in the sight of the Lord.
Yeah.
And it goes on to say, God opened her eyes and she suddenly saw a well full of water. She no longer had this, I call them like blinders on to what God was providing for them. Yeah. And so, and I think that's just one of those things that like sometimes, and maybe I'm wrong, but I know in my life, sometimes I've just had to hit the rock bottom and say, you know what, I cannot do this on my own. I cannot carry this weight on my shoulders by myself. Right. I'm out of all my fuel. I'm empty. I cannot do this by myself. God, like, I need you. I need you. And I think sometimes we just have to get to that place of like, I can't walk through the wilderness by myself. It was just Ishmael and Hagar. They can no longer walk through the wilderness by themselves.
Right.
They can no longer carry the water or which they're out of water at this point, but they can't do any of that on their own anymore. They've got to have God.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting that there was a well right there nearby. Obviously it wasn't that far because he opened her eyes. Like God's deliverance is always near. And so often we're focused on our own problems that we don't see his deliverance is so close. Yeah. And it's so great that God immediately had that answer for her. But it's interesting to think, what if she had been talking to him all along? Would she have not had to go to that place of desperation? I mean, it doesn't matter now, but just interesting to think that he's our deliverer. And then if you remember back when Abraham sent Hagar and Ishmael away, he didn't want to.
Yeah.
But God said, it's okay. You can do it. I'm going to take care of him.
Be obedient to what your wife has asked you to do. Like, I mean, he tells Abraham that, like, do as your wife has asked you to do.
Yeah.
And I think because of his obedience, God also, that was even more favor that was shown on not just Abraham, but Hagar and Ishmael. Because sometimes things that happen are because other people are praying.
Yeah.
Other people are standing in that gap for you. So I think that's a good.
Yeah. And it's interesting to think that Hagar's circumstances were not her fault. Like she didn't ask to be given to Abraham and impregnated by him. Can we say that? I think so.
I mean, that's what happened.
We said it. And she didn't ask to be thrown out. Like she didn't ask for any of this. This was all circumstances that were not her fault.
She was obedient. I keep using the word obedient because it's such an important factor to understand when it comes to our relationship with Christ as well.
And I think that's why God honored her and favored her and delivered her. But then tell us what happens to Ishmael after they see the well.
Yeah. So after they see the well, obviously they get water, but they continue to live in the wilderness.
Yeah.
In the wilderness. Now I would say they've moved from like the spiritual wilderness into they're just living in the wilderness.
Yeah.
But they made this place home because God did something for them there. Yeah. They entered a new season.
Yeah.
And Ishmael was raised up. He not only just survived this and his mom survived this, but they began to thrive. He became an archer in the middle of a wilderness. Now, I don't live in a wilderness. I live in Tennessee where there are lots of deer and lots of things around that archers can shoot. I don't really know what all's in the wilderness to shoot.
I don't know. I've never been.
But he became me either. I don't know if I want to go. It's going to be hot. I don't have enough sunblock for it. Yeah. None of that. But I say all that to say, like, it's interesting to know that he was an archer of all things in the middle of a wilderness.
Yeah, it is interesting.
But he thrived. He thrived through that.
He got married and he had kids and eventually did become a father of a nation.
Yeah.
So it is very interesting to see. I mean, there's so much we could dig into this story.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But I love that you found. I love the fact that you said I was studying my devotion, and then when you went to the Bible study and they said, "What do you have to tell us? Lay it on us."
And I had no idea. I was like
Pastor Liz, and you were like
deer in headlights.
But because you daily feed yourself on the Word, the Holy Spirit always brings that back. So I think these are so many important things we can come from this story, but even just from your story. Is if we're feeding ourselves daily, then when the word is needed, it will it will come. The Bible says the word does not return void, but accomplishes what it's sent to do.
And true. And that's how we practically apply God's word to our life. Because nothing is new under the sun.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about that in episode 1. And I think we'll probably keep referencing this because it's so true. Nothing's new under the sun.
Right.
Pandemics, tensions,
social injustice, human
identity,
rights,
war,
all those things. Yeah.
Mass killings of people, hate crimes, all those things. Those all happen in the Bible too.
Yeah.
And it's not by chance that everything that's in the Bible is in the Bible.
Right. That's exactly right.
It's there for a reason.
And
it's there for us.
Applicable to our lives
every single day.
So we just have to keep feeding ourselves.
Yeah. But we have a challenge for you. We always want to leave you with a challenge because honestly, this challenge, we've challenged ourselves with it as well. So
yeah, for sure. Well, our challenge is just like Hagar had a choice to make. You have a choice to make every day. And when the Lord spoke to her and said, get up and go comfort your son. And then after she was obedient, then her eyes were opened to see her deliverance. The Lord is challenging you today. I'm sure that the Holy Spirit is asking you to do something. And if he's not, then we challenge you to ask the Lord, what does he want you to do? And then we challenge you to get up and do it, whether it's just talking to a coworker or a neighbor, whether it's just being polite or friendly or loving on somebody, sending them a note, sending them a text, checking on people who are isolated or quarantined, whatever it is. Or maybe it's starting a ministry or starting something new or volunteering in your church, kids ministry.
Wink, wink.
Whatever it is, our challenge is you have a choice to make and you have to get up and do something.
And I would also say this is aside from the challenge. If you do find yourself, and when you do, it's not if they come, hard times are going to come.
It will come, yeah.
When you find yourself in that wilderness season, it's not the end.
Right.
Don't look at it as the end, but look at it as a time when, because the wilderness can get pretty quiet. The barren place is pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Look at it as a time where there's no other distractions around for you to spend time with the Lord.
Because he's always there. He never left Hagar. She just needed to cry out to him.
And notice, he approached her when she was alone away from her son. Yeah. She was by herself. Yeah. And she was down to nothing. Now, I'm not saying that that was just how it happened in the story. It's going to happen different ways. Everybody's story is a little different.
Sure.
But don't view the wilderness as the end. View it as the beginning of something new.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you've got to get rid of the old things to have something new bloom. I always think about, and I'll leave you with this, I promise I will end after this, but I always think about when farmers get ready to rotate their crops, they've got to burn their field.
Yeah.
And we're like, why would they burn their field? But they have to burn their field in order for good nutrients in the soil to come back to bring forth a new and healthy crop for the next year.
Yeah. So we just need to let God do what he wants to do in our lives and get up and do something.
Just like Elsa said, let it go. No, thanks for listening this week. Thanks for listening to this episode. We're going to have more coming, more on the way. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and whatever podcast platform you're listening on. Please let your friends know about it. We hope you were blessed and encouraged by something that we said today.
If you have any prayer requests, send them to us. Let us know how we can pray for you.
Yes.
If we're helping at all, we would love to hear from you. So we hope you have a fantastic week. And remember to always
color outside the lines.
Thank you for joining us for Coloring Outside the Lines with Katie and Liz. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. If you like what you heard, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or whatever platform you use. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Thank you to our friends James Tadeo for our music and Justin Siegel for our logo and cover art. You can follow them on Instagram at Bolt Music and at Siegel Arts. Join us next time, and until then,
keep coloring outside the lines.